Welcome to another edition of the Litigation Psychology Podcast, brought to you by Courtroom Sciences. Dr. Bill Kanasky coming at you Monday morning. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend. Maybe you cashed in on a couple of these college football upsets. Upset City, baby. That was my very weak Dick Vitale impression. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Got a big week coming up. I don't have a big week coming up. But I want to jump on the podcast to talk a little bit more. I have to keep jumping into things as things develop because, things change really fast. And if you recall, I did a 4-part so that's the new term here. It's disruptive voir. Now the guy in Texas called me. He's like, "It's voir dire." Get here, this voir dire stuff. It's voir dire, boy. He actually said that during a meeting. It's voir dire. Tomato. Come on, folks. But this is really complicated stuff. So we did the 4-part Disruptive Voir series. That got incredible feedback from the audience. And I just, this morning, actually really last night, Dr. Witt and I finished our paper on this. So this will be submitted. I'm thinking this is going to be published in like January, February edition of CLM magazine. Now, why do we publish in CLM magazine, but we don't do any presentations there or attend any of their conferences? Pretty interesting, right? And it's kind of weird. So let me walk you through this. Number one, CLM magazine does a really good job. Their articles just physically look fantastic. They look really good. They have a very wide network of attorneys and corporate and insurance professionals. And I've, excuse me, I got a really good relationship with them. I've been writing for them for a couple of years now, published several articles. All that's going really well. Now, that's CLM magazine. The problem with the CLM conferences is they follow what is called the pay to play model of conferences. They called me one day. They're like, "Hey, you got really good stuff." I'm like, "Well, thank you very much." They're like, "We'd love for you to speak at our meeting." I said, "Okay." And they went, "How does $8,000 sound?" I went, I'd prefer 10, but eight. I think I could work with you with 8. And they went, "Oh, no. You're going to pay us 8 to come speak." I'm paying you 8? I don't think so. So my response to that was go bleep yourself. We I don't do that. Sorry, it's the other way around. But that's their system. DRI has mostly moved to the system too, which is why we're not playing in the sandbox together. So what we did, instead of doing all those types of conferences, I don't do that stuff anymore. I did that stuff for 15, 16, 17 years. All the speeches I give, I tend to go right to the corporation or the insurance company or the law firm. Why do I need this middleman? Why do I need CLM DRI in the middle here, screwing things up, charging me $8,000 to speak? Are you kidding me? But if you go to a conference and the speaker is paying the conference entity to speak, how do you think that speech is going to be? Do you think that's going to be a good speech? You think that's going to be worth your while? No. No, it's gonna suck. And that's all the feedback I get from those conferences. So no, I don't need. We don't do those conferences. I like seminars that are very industry specific, that have serious people involved. And so going directly to the corporation and their legal department, going directly to insurance company, their claims people. And then this has been big. The last 2 years, this has been big. Going right to serious defense firms. Done a number of seminars for defense firms the last 2 years. And they all called, I didn't call one of them, not 0%. They called me and said, hey, enough is enough. I want my attorneys, so a managing partner calls me, I want my attorneys to be armed with the best weaponry, and we want to work with you, and we want to learn how to use you so we can combine forces. I said, let's go. So this law firm recently, good law firm, they signed up for 8 sessions. It's like we do 2 sessions a month for like an hour to 90 minutes. And we've already done 2 of the 8. And they had 75 to 80 attorneys on the Zoom while I'm lecturing. Get some interaction at the end. So a couple things. If you're a law firm, you're an attorney and you want to train, and then some attorneys call me, they're like, can you train me one-on-one? I'm like, no, I can't do that. I don't have time for that. Maybe in my future, like, semi-retirement, I can start doing that. But if you're a law firm and you want training, okay, give me a call. Give me a call. No, it's not free. I may do a talk for your firm for free, right? But if you want actual, like the nuts and bolts of this stuff, that's going to take some time. And it's going to take a lot of effort. But that's what I'm doing now. So I got several law firms that have signed up, and we're doing a lot of that. And now I'm working with those law firms, and they have the edge. They have the edge. I'm a big proponent of training. The problem is a lot of the training out there kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. I'm getting emails from younger attorneys that say, your podcast and your articles are 100 times better than any seminar I've been to. So I just keep coming to you. I'm like, okay, good. Happy to do that. But today I want to dive into this paper a little bit on this disruptive voir dire. Now, again, go dig up the 4-part series I did about 2.5, 3 months ago. Probably late summer. That's what I'm thinking. 4-part series where I kind of walk you through all these things. And it's a 4-part series because it's hard to teach this stuff. Like when I talk about opening statements, it's fun and it's easy to teach that stuff. But man, voir dire, this is like dark, deep psychology. It's really complicated. It's really hard. But we just finished this paper. Be looking for it early 2026. But I wanted to read you a little bit from this paper because one of the key issues here with this paper, and this is something I've already written 1, 2, 3. I've already written 3 papers on this topic. And the reason, and now this is going to be this is going to be a portion of number 4, is the whole concept of confirmation bias. It's the number 1 most dangerous, most powerful psychological concept out there in your personal life and your professional life. Okay? And we've talked about this on how one of the main victims of confirmation bias is you, the attorney. Right? And that's why you want to do focus groups. So you can actually see your case objectively and you're not falling into cognitive traps and cognitive shortcuts. because that's where a lot of mistakes get made. You look at your case, they're like, oh, there's nothing here. And then 2 years later, you're cha-ching, paying out, right? Plaintiff's bar knows this. Oh, they know. They know it's dangerous, right? And so, and clients, insurance claims people, in-house legal team. I mean, it's really, really, again, that's why you can't be the judge at a beauty pageant where your daughter is one of the, you can't do it. You can't see it clearly, right? So confirmation bias really has this really negative assessment on your case assessment. But let's talk about jurors, okay? Because this affects everybody. Why? Evolution. Little evolutionary psychology lecture today, okay? Why is confirmation bias the most powerful, the most dangerous psychological concept? It affects all of us at every moment of every single day. Plaintiff attorney, defense attorney, claims manager, homemakers, bankers, construction workers, all of us. Okay. So let's kind of talk about how this started. Let's go back to cave people. Right? What's the survival benefit of confirmation bias? Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Well, let's back up. What is confirmation bias? Confirmation bias is making cognitive shortcuts that align with your belief system, your pre-existing belief system, right? So if we put ourselves in the shoes of cave people, there's a major and positive survival benefit to confirmation bias, right? You're out there gathering, right? You're gathering, right? Hunters, gatherers, right? And you're out there, you're gathering. Maybe you're picking some fruit for your family to take back to the cave. Fruit's important. You're picking fruit, and then you hear something in the bushes rustling around. Well, the cognitive shortcut is, that's probably a predator. Let's not F around here. Let's not overthink this. Let's grab this fruit and get back to the cave where it's safe. So rather than fully investigating the environment, gathering and assessing all of the information to determine whether or not it's a predator or just some annoying squirrel, you haul ass back to the cave. That's confirmation bias. It's a cognitive shortcut that was originally designed to protect you. Has a great survival advantage there. Now let's fast forward thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Well, that circuit is hardwired and very deeply wired in the brain. So we all do this. Jurors do it. Everybody, we all do it. Is we tend to make these cognitive shortcut, quick judgments. And here's the key. It aligns with the pre-existing belief system. That's the core of it. And this is where we have a problem with jurors. This is where we have a problem with jurors. Because we don't want, on the defense side, you don't want them taking cognitive shortcuts. Oh my God. It's a nightmare. Okay? Because if a juror has a belief system, and then they hear the plaintiff's opening, they can make that cognitive shortcut and kind of go all in very, very quickly. They will not go out into the bushes to see, is this a predator or is this a squirrel? They're not going to do that. And then the defense, gets up there and they've already made their cognitive shortcut based on their belief system. And here's the worst part about confirmation bias is going forward, we have something called selective attention, meaning they will only pay attention to things that align with their pre-existing belief system. Very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So I'm kind of scrolling through the paper here. You guys are going to love this paper. Love this paper, right? By the way, if you hear all this banging in the background, that's I got construction guys here trying to finish this damn house. All year, every day, workers in here. Drywall, I just pounding, power drills, you name it, right? So, confirmation bias with jurors, right? So it starts early because jurors like, well, God, if we're all the way here, if we're all the way here in the courtroom, the defense must have done something wrong. Hell, they dragged me out of work and they're paying me $17.50 to be here. Something must be wrong. So they must have done something wrong, right? So that's kind of how it starts. So, what do we do in disruptive voir dire, or for you Texas attorneys, voir dire? What do we do? So remember, the number one rule of disruptive voir dire. There's the number one rule. Number one rule. Everybody write this down. It's the number one rule. Everybody's scared of it. It's the number one rule of disruptive voir dire. Okay? I've said this a million times on the podcast. I'm going to say it again because that's the number one rule. If you want to solve a problem, right? If you have a problem and you want to solve this problem, expose the problem. If you want to solve a problem, expose the problem. Because that forces attention and cognition. And if you're forcing attention and cognition, it's impossible to make a cognitive shortcut. Ah, crap. I got a meeting in 15 minutes. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up here quickly. All right? So, how do we expose this problem? We have to ask the right questions. You have to ask the right questions, right? Here are just a couple of them, right, that you can work with, okay? So, one of the questions would be, because remember, there's a whole process you have to set up the question. You have to show that you're vulnerable. You talk about confirmation bias. You bring this up. Hey, this happens to us all. You normalize the problem, expose it. We in society tend to make quick decisions. Let me tell you a story about when I made a quick decision. I was dead wrong. And then once I gathered the rest of the information, I took a cognitive shortcut. Me, defense guy, I took a cognitive shortcut and I was dead wrong. I fell for confirmation bias. That's step number 2. Okay, show your own vulnerability, normalize this. Step number 3. Can you think of a time, ladies and gentlemen, where you felt really strongly about something, but you ended up changing your mind after you learn more? Let's talk about that. I just told you my story, where I made a cognitive shortcut, and boy, I was wrong. And I changed my mind once I got more information. Let's talk about your experiences. Okay? So you see we're just dark psychology, folks, okay? We're exposing the problem. We are forcing cognition and attention towards the problem that you want to prevent, which is a cognitive shortcut, which prevents, by definition, the cognitive shortcut because you're forcing cognition and attention. You're exposing the problem, okay, the thing you don't want them to do. You're exposing that, You're saying, hey, we're all susceptible to this, even me. Let's talk about times in your life where it's happened to you. It's okay. And they'll start telling you about their experiences. Okay? You're priming them for your case to stay open-minded by exposing the problem. And then here's the great part. Teaching them what to do to not make the cognitive shortcut. And that is waiting and gathering information. You're telling them, yes, go into the bushes. See if it's a squirrel or not. Versus making this quick decision. Okay? Another kind of different version of this question. Have you ever realized that your first impression of a person or perhaps a situation was wrong? At first glance, you thought you had it all figured out, and then it turned out, yeah, you didn't have it figured out. And then you figured it out a little bit later. After what? Waiting for more information. Tell me about that experience. Okay? Now, by doing this, you're programming, strong word, programming all the jurors' brains to not fall into confirmation bias and taking the cognitive shortcut. But you have to put this effort in, right? By exposing the problem and get them talking about it. Because what you're saying is, boy, isn't that kind of stupid? It's kind of silly to make quick decisions, isn't it? Because we're wrong a lot of the time, is what you're saying. Now, you're not going to say that. Now here's the best one. Here's your closer. Here's your closer out of the bullpen. Bring it out of the bullpen. Here's your closer coming in to finish this. After you do this, right? So you've set it up, you've defined it, you've talked about your personal experience with confirmation. You get the jurors to talk about them. Here's the closer. After all this is done, this is the last question on this topic. You say, you ready for this? What do you think the consequences are to this cognitive shortcut, confirmation, but everything we just talked about? If jurors did that during a trial, and during this trial, or during any trial, what do you think the consequences would be to the legal system and the parties involved? Right? See? And then the first hand's going to pop up, and you're like, juror number 7, what do you think the consequences of are going to be here? And juror number 7 is going to say, well, the jurors could make decisions too quickly, and they could be wrong, just like those other things we just talked about. Exactamundo. I'd go a little Pulp Fiction there, Jules. Look at the big brain on juror number 7. It's a very tasty burger. If you don't know Pulp Fiction, you're not going to understand any of this shit. Okay? So everything I just laid out, that's how you handle confirmation bias. But you can't be dilly-dally. You can't be sloppy with this. It's a system. It's a system. You got to start and go through these various steps to get through the end. You can't just jump to the last step. Okay? You have a problem? Here's a problem. Expose the problem. Show how you personally are vulnerable to the problem. Tell your story. Trust me, we've all done it. We've all met somebody and then immediately said, God, what an asshole. Right? And then a couple hours or a couple days later, you're like, oh, wow, this person ain't so bad. I learned more about them. More information became available, and now you've changed your mind about that person, right? Or a situation. You walk into a restaurant, and you kind of get that feeling, oh, God, I don't know about this. And then 20 minutes later, you're like, wow, this is the best damn food I've ever had. Right? That cognitive shortcut gets you in trouble. And so you point that out. Then next step, get the jurors talking about how they've done the exact same thing. And it's human, it's normal. Now you've exposed this problem. You're forcing cognition and attention. And then that final, your closer out of the bullpen. What do you think the consequences are? If jurors did that on an important lawsuit, what would be the consequences of that? Okay. Now, the statistical odds of them jumping to conclusions and taking cognitive shortcuts during the trial have drastically decreased. Drastically decreased. Because you reprogrammed their brain. God, I love this job. I love it. All right. So again, I'm going to get this paper out. Email me with questions, call me, or whatever. But like you're crazy not to ask these questions, because that's one of the top issues you get from the it's this confirmation bias and these quick decisions, right? Kills you. It kills you. This is all psychology. There's nothing legal about it. This is all this 100% psychology, right? So confirmation bias. Okay, think about that. Think about what I just said. Okay, you can word things in your own way, but I just walked you through the steps on how to do this. Now, what we can do for you, if you're going to trial, trust me, we have a laundry list. Confirmation bias is one of like the 13 areas that we cover. And every area has certain questions and a setup. We can help you along with this. You don't need a jury consultant sitting there in the courtroom with you. You need the right questions. You need the right plan of voir dire. Okay? That's what you need. So next to the opening statement stuff I talk about all the time, this is area number 2, consulting on constantly, because this is where the needle moves. Okay? Do this the right way. Set yourself up for success. But then don't go giving an hour and a half opening statement, because then you just shot yourself in the foot. We've talked about that a lot. Okay? All right, I got to jump on this. I got a new case intake I got to do. But listen, confirmation bias, perilous, but fully preventable if you handle it the right way. All right, Litigation Psychology Podcast brought to you by Courtroom Sciences. I'm Dr. Bill Kanasky. See you next time.